As we begin thinking through Genesis chapter 19, understand that this is one of the most troubling and mentally arresting chapters in the Bible. There's numerous themes that we could consider at great length, and yet there's one theme I believe that sort of resonates just overall. So let me give you a brief overview, and then I want to land with a look at how the New Testament actually treats and interacts with this passage. First, remember why the Lord is there. He and an angel are there to look upon the wickedness of Sodom, and this is really more for our benefit than theirs. For certainly Jesus, in his pre-incarnate glory, would have known full well the extent of the wickedness in that region. But not only do they observe, but they actually become the target of the Sodomites' passion. Now, elsewhere, the Bible tells us that Sodom and her daughters, if you will, were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things. The detestable things here is shown to be their homosexual lust. And such was their embrace of this, that even after they were struck with blindness, they still groped after the visitors. And it was for all of these things that they faced God's judgment. Notice also the corrupting effects of being surrounded by sin. By choosing to live in Sodom, Lot exposed his family to enough wickedness that they became rather numb to it and even participated in it as if it were normal. His family members thought him joking when he told them to flee. His wife doubted, disobeyed, looked back as she fled. And his daughters, instead of faithfully waiting for God's timing, they engaged in abusive incest with their father. Furthermore, look at the weak faith of Lot. He condemned his peers' homosexual intentions, yet he offered up his daughters for sexual exploitation and likely death. He lingered in Sodom, causing the Lord to physically grab him and drag him away. The chapter closes with him getting drunk and unwittingly getting caught up in a scenario kind of like Noah did. Finally, we saw last week, God is patient to an extent, but he's not shy about moving and intervening when the right time comes. His intervention led Lot to safety and resulted in judgment upon the whole area. God's wrath is nothing to be trifled with. The text tells us that when Abraham looked over the valley, smoke like that from a furnace rose up and obscured the view. Such was the destruction. In the New Testament, 2 Peter chapter 2 sort of interprets this chapter for us. You should really take time to read all of that text. For the sake of time, though, I'll simply read verses 7 and 9. And if he rescued the righteous Lot, greatly distressed by the sensual conduct of the wicked, then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials, and to keep the unrighteous under punishment unto the day of judgment. Peter thus highlights both the positive and negative reality of God's justice. And I think this is meant as an encouragement for us. God is just. He will punish the wicked, and that punishment will be severe and final and appropriate. As the author of Hebrew tells us, it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. But the opposite is also true. God will justly preserve those who by faith are counted righteous. Lot, like Abraham, struggled to perfectly live out his faith, but by the grace of God, he was saved. And herein lies the reality that we must cling to. And I think even the theme of the chapter. See, we have hope not because we're perfect, but because God is gracious. By grace, Jesus absorbed God's wrath, proved God's justice, and offers God's salvation. God is both just and the justifier. And by faith, we accept this and live just as Lot did. And so as you read this text, may you meditate upon both the wrath and the grace of God. And may it drive you and all of us to walk even closer with him by faith.